Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another tutorial. In this video guys, I'll be showing you how to draft the patterns for a leg of mutton sleeve and a bell sleeve. If this sounds good to you and it's something you're interested in, then please stick to the end of this video. And if you're coming across my page for the very first time, you are welcome. Please don't forget to click on the subscribe button. And to my returning subscribers, thank you very much for coming back and supporting my channel. Now with that being said guys, let's just get right into this video. So you'll be needing two straight sleeve patterns for this tutorial, and these are the patterns. So I'm just going to be taking one out of it and then I'll open up this pattern. So I'll just make it flat. Now from the cap of the sleeve, I'm going to be drawing a straight line to the elbow line. So you have to also mark the elbow line across with your pencil or your marker. So I'm just going to be marking a straight line with my pencil from the cap of the sleeve to the elbow line like so. Now I'm just going to be using my marker to draw from the cap of the sleeve to the elbow line, as you can see, and then I'll be using my marker to also draw across the elbow line. As you can see, we're going to be demarcating that line. The reason why I'll be separating the paper at the elbow is because we are only having the gathering at the cap of the sleeve and not at the elbow. So I'll be separating this pattern through the elbow like so. So I'll just go ahead and use my scissors to cut through the paper and separate this pattern into two. So the next thing we want to do now after separation is to divide the lower part of this sleeve into several parts depending on what you want in order for us to do the slash and spread method. You can divide into 5 depending on what you want. I'll just eyeball about 1.5 inches interval, then I'll mark it, and after doing that I'm just going to connect it to the top of the cap of the sleeve like so. It doesn't have to be accurate, just eyeball it and manipulate it however you want. So I'm just going to rule a straight line joining these 2 points together like so. And then I'll go ahead and use marker to further highlight these lines for better visibility. So I'll just go ahead and number the parts. So the next thing we are going to be doing is to be cutting from the cap of the sleeve. Remember, we are gathering from the cap of the sleeve. We are not gathering at the elbow line. So the next thing I will do is to take my scissors and start cutting from the cap like so. But I'm not going to be cutting all the way through at the elbow line. I'm just going to stop a little bit before cutting over. So you just go ahead and cut, follow the line you drew earlier, and then cut from the cap towards the elbow line like so. Now the next thing that I'm going to do is to spread this paper on a fresh pattern paper. So I'm just going to spread the pattern on a fresh paper like so. You can see how I spread it. So I'm going to be using masking tape to hold it to the new pattern paper. So I'll first of all hold the first panel. I'll make sure that I hold everything in place, and then I'll be having 2.5 inches interval between each panel before I use the masking tape on it. So I'm going to be measuring 2.5 inches between each panel or each paper. Now you can do 3 inches, 1.5, 3.5 depending on how much gathering you want to add to the sleeves. So after making sure that I have everything in place, the center there will be 3 inches. I'm going to make the center 3 inches, then the other side will be 2.5 inches. So I'm just going to be using my masking tape to hold everything in place. I'll measure it to know that I have the accurate number. Then I'll use masking tape just like I'm doing. Just follow what I'm doing. So the next thing that I'm going to be doing is bringing the lower part of the sleeve, and I'll be placing it under this one that we spread, making sure that it is aligned properly at the edges. Just make sure that you placed it properly. Now I'm going to be holding it down, and then I'll be using my masking tape to hold the lower part of the sleeve down so it doesn't shift. And now I'll just be using masking tape to hold the lower part down. I'll hold it at that part, and then I'll go over to the hem of the sleeve and also hold it down with masking tape. Then after doing that, I'll just go over to the edge like so and smoothing the edges out. We don't want sharp edges, so just connect it together like so, making it not sharp but a little bit curvy. I'll also repeat the same process for this other side, just smoothing the edge out like so. And then after doing that, I'll just go ahead and also use marker to retrace the curved line that I drew at the edges so you guys can see very well, so that we can have a nice smooth transition from the top of the sleeve to the lower part of the sleeve. And then the next thing we are going to do is to also connect the top part of this sleeve like so. As you can see, I'm just using my pencil to kind of make it into just one continuous line. Just make it curvy, connecting all these panels together. You can see how I'm doing it. So you connect it together before you cut it out. And now we cut. And guys, if you made it to this point in this video and you haven't subscribed yet, please go ahead and click on the subscribe button. Thank you. And this, guys, is your leg of mutton sleeve pattern. So you gather the top of the sleeve, obviously. That is why we have that volume there. And then you had your sewing allowances all around the pattern and you cut to pieces for your sleeves. Now we are just going to move on to the next sleeve in this video. So we also be making use of a basic sleeve pattern for this project. So, and this is what I have here. I'm going to be opening up this pattern, making it flat like so. Then I'll be drawing a straight line along the grain line or the center line from the cap of the sleeve to the hem line of the sleeve like so. Now you can put your belt design at any location on your sleeve, whether at the lower part of your sleeve or at the elbow. For this tutorial, we're going to be having the belt design at the elbow. It's going to start from the elbow. So that is why I marked a line across the elbow like so. Now the next thing we want to do is that I'm going to be cutting through the grain line of this sleeve towards the cap right there. So I'll just cut through the line that we drew all the way to the cap, but I'm not going to be cutting all the way through. So just leave a tiny bit of inch. So I'll just cut like so, but not cutting all the way. Now after cutting, this is what we have. You can use this cutting to control the volume of your sleeve. The more you open it, the more volume you have. And we don't want to have any gathers at the cap of the sleeve. That is why we're not cutting it all the way through. So the volume or the length of the cap remains the same. Now the next thing we want to do now is to go over to the elbow line. I'm going to be opening up the elbow line as well, but I'm not going to be cutting it all the way through. Just watch what I'm doing. And then after doing that, I will also repeat it to the second side of the elbow line. So after cutting it, this is what we have. You can open it up through the cutting to give you more volume and more shape. So the next thing I'm going to be doing is to take this pattern paper and place it on a fresh pattern paper before we do our spreading on it. So for this particular sleeve, we are not adding extra volume to the cap of the sleeve. That is why we are not cutting the paper all the way. So it remains the same. So I'm just going to be using masking tape to hold this pattern down like so. And then we'll move over to the hem of the sleeve. Now, the more you open this up, the more belt design you're going to be having. The opening at the elbow and the bottom of the sleeve determines how wide your belt design is going to go. So for me, I want the width of that opening to be about 5.5 inches. You can make yours wider than that, depends on your preference. So after making sure that I want 5.5 inches like so, then I'll go over to the elbow and make sure that the opening there is about 1 inch, because the opening at the elbow is going to determine how you can control the opening you want at the bottom of the sleeve. So I want mine to be 5.5 inches. That is why I'm making the elbow opening to be 1 inch for each of the opening at the elbow. I hope you understand. So I'm just using masking tape to hold it down so it doesn't shift. And I'm just making sure that I have 5.5 inches there. Now the next thing we want to do is to connect the 2 points together like so, using a curved line. We have to make it into a smooth transition like so. So I'm just going to be connecting those 2 points together, the edges of the sleeve together like so, so we can have a curved rounded edge. And I will also be using masking tape to hold the necessary parts in place. And just like I always do, I'm going to be using marker to also retrace this line for better visibility. And after I'm done doing that, I'll also be making sure that I don't have any sharp edges at the elbow. I'll just smoothen those parts like so, and then I'll go ahead to cut this pattern out. And here is your bell sleeve pattern. You're going to be cutting 2 of these obviously, and then you'll be having your sewing allowances all around your pattern before you transfer to your fabric. And on this note, guys, we've come to the end of today's tutorial. If you found my video helpful, please give me a giant thumbs up, share my video to your friends, and also click on the subscribe button if you haven't already. And please turn on your notification bell to get notified of my latest videos. Until I see you in my next one, guys. Bye.